Hello. Hello, I'm Jarek. I'm from Gdańsk. I work for Dynatrace, an American-Austrian company, also known as Computer before. Seeing the two previous presentations, I was shocked how much I can refer to those experiences and how much related they are, to the extent that I just added one more slide to be able to refer to them even more. Sorry for this. You might think that this title is a little bit cliche, but when you'll see my slides, you'll see where I'm heading to. All right. So one thing that I always miss during the presentations is that you tell us about your experiences, you tell us about your solutions, you tell us about how you deal with information and your users, but I hardly ever know what kind of subject matter you're talking about. For example, if I tell you how to write a book, a fiction, do you think it would matter if it was a horror story or a love novel? Probably it would. So for the starters, I would like to show you what I'm actually writing about. I'm writing about application performance management. This is a term that started surfacing about 10, 15 years ago, and this is about tools that help companies delivering services online and to use online operations to make their customers happy and make their operations working. Application performance management can be delivered in many ways. You can either install agents on your servers. Agents are listening to what's happening on your server, reporting to you so that you know that there's something wrong immediately when it happens. You can also apply synthetic monitoring, meaning you create synthetic users, meaning fake users, robots, that perform certain operations that your customers and your company would do, and then you can collect metrics and see how your servers, how your applications behave. Or you can, and this is the bit that I'm most involved in. You can set up a huge, very powerful computer called Network Probe, plug it into the network, let it listen to all the traffic going through the wire, and this way collect information and in an intelligent way draw conclusions from what's happening with your applications and in your network. And the reason why I use this slide, this is War Room from Dr. Strangelove movie. Because business very often imports a lot of vocabulary from military, and one of them is war room, and it sounds very serious and very important, but in fact it looks like this. This is war room at Facebook in 2012 when they had very major rundown, and basically meaning the application was very slow, was not performing well at all, and then all the stakeholders of the application, meaning operations, database, admins, and everyone sit by one table trying to solve the problem. Because usually when your application is going down very fast, it means that you have no idea what's going to happen. And application management tools, application performance management tools help you avoid war rooms, help you react to the problems when they happen, not after or even before they happen. So this is my subject matter. I'm writing about application performance management tools. And who are my users? Who are the readers? Who's my target audience I need to speak to? These are analysts. Analysts that these are the most common type of an end user, looking at the reports, checking the metric, seeing trying to draw some conclusions from what's happening in the application. Then there are very, very difficult very difficult part of target audience. There are developers and admins. Admins in particular, because they don't usually care about application performance management at all. They're just the guys who need to install that powerful computer in their network, and they have no idea what it does. They only want to know how to install it, what it does, and what they want to make sure that the machine doesn't destroy their network. Developers, you can also use application management performance tools to troubleshoot your application, to debug your code. So when there's something wrong with your web application, you can there are tools that let you drill down to the very line of code that causes the problems. And developers, they also want to know how to set up the tool, how to work, and apart from that, they don't really read the documentation because nobody reads the documentation, right? Business. These are CTOs who make decisions, who make purchase decisions. This software is bloody expensive. There are deals counting in millions of dollars. So they want to make sure that the software works as expected. And they sometimes verify it looking into documentation. These are also, with application performance management tools, you can also create dashboards, business dashboards, digestible, easy to understand by non-tech people. And these are also people from boards, people in the management. And they sometimes need help in being able to understand what's happening, or if they want to know more about what they see on the screen. So business, they also read technical documentation. Support. Support uses documentation and generally speaking information shipped with the product, first to understand the product, to learn it, but also then when they have calls from the customers, they can refer the customers to documentation. So the better the documentation, the less work they have. And there are, and this is typical for the kind of company I work, sales representatives, sales engineers, and partners. These are people that take this big box I mentioned to you, they go to the company and they perform POC, proof of concept. And it's a very, very difficult situation because they're sitting there in a sometimes hostile environment. There's an admin sitting behind their back, looking at every single thing they do in his network. And very often, they are totally cut from the world. One of our clients was Ministry of Defense in the UK. And to perform a POC in the Ministry of Defense, you were allowed to enter the data center only with a piece of paper, nothing else, printed documentation. So such people, they rely a lot on very good and reliable documentation because sometimes it's a matter of having a successful POC, making a lot of money. So these are my users. As you can see, this is a very diverse group. Some of them are tech, some of them are not. They're all interested in very many different things. And so I put you in the picture. Now you know what I'm working with. And what I'm going to tell you about today is these are my conclusions I drew from the 10 years of working as a technical writer. You can disagree with me. These are not sacred truths. And I really hope that you disagree with me. And listening to the presentations before, it's kind of funny because based on the same arguments, we sometimes made totally different decisions. Because I started off as a guy from teaching English at an English school, headhunted by a desperate company, not being able to hire any technical writers at all, with the task of writing a whole body of docset from scratch. So desperately, they started calling English schools, lying to the secretaries, telling them that they need someone to proofread their documentation. That's how I got the job. So getting the job, I had no idea what it was. Like, it was the first time in my life I heard the term technical writer. Going there to the company, I assumed that it's probably some kind of a Polish startup that they're not very good at English. They probably got some international deal, and they want to make sure that their documentation, that their language is correct. I didn't check where I was actually going to, and and I was very self-confident, because come on, it's only English. Then I came back home and I Googled the company. It was Compuer. I was rather shocked, but I got the job. Um, and we started off from scratch. I had to learn a lot of stuff. We started off with some documentation management tool, a little bit older than Data, based on some very ancient technologies as SGML. I'm talking about Dogbook. Has anyone ever used Dogbook? Okay, not as popular as Data. So I started off with Dogbook, and then I told you that APM as a term started surfacing about 10, 15 years ago. So this is a very rapidly growing market. There's a lot of things happening. So my first company, Computer, started purchasing other companies like hell. Like they would have a new purchase every half a year. And a new company brought into the portfolio meant a new ecosystem of documentation. So after the first few years, we had a situation of integrated solutions because the company was not only buying new solutions, but it was doing their best to integrate them. So we had APM integrated solutions with documentation based on Dogbook, FrameMaker, Word, Data, and something else. I can't even, and RoboHelp, yeah. So, and then, like we very often at the presentation, you very often tell us, you should do this, you should follow this path, or you should take another, you should make decisions. The problem is that most often, you can't really make any decisions. You just get what someone else decided you to give. And that was our case. Like the decision came. Our Dogbook environment was very nice. It was developed. We had automated builds. We built it all from scratch, but the decision was made. We all go to Data. The conversion took a lot of time, a lot of effort, so many different sources and that had to land under one roof. We finally did it. But when the Data environment settled, my company purchased another one, but this time it turned out that the player they bought was a little bit stronger for them. And they were using Confluence forever, from the beginning. And guess what? What did we choose? Confluence. So we performed the migration from Data to Confluence. Because the CEO of the company became the CTO, and like we couldn't say anything. The way we did it, we were, and that's why I used this screen from Back to the Future, because like comparing to your experiences, I'm going back and forth, and sometimes I don't even know which direction I'm heading. I'm not going to talk about technicalities too much, but we used Confluence API to publish from Data to Confluence, and we treated Confluence output as a static deliverable. Still, the data source stored in SVN was our main source of information. We tried to avoid as much as possible editing straight in Confluence, because then it required remembering to merge back into the source, and it's like you're driving towards inconsistencies and problems as hell. But we treated Confluence as a static output. Like trivia fact. Atlassian, makers of Confluence, they store their documentation in Confluence. Do you think they author it in Confluence? No. They store the docs in Markdown and publish to Confluence. So okay, but then publishing to Confluence, which is we are application performance management company, so we could monitor our Confluence server very well, and it's not state-of-art technology when it comes to performance and capacity. So publishing 10,000 topics to Confluence daily, it basically killed the server. It was impossible. So then one beautiful day, we made the decision, okay, we drop our Data and we author solely in Confluence. And it was like this for some time. there are problems I'll mention later that are related from moving to DTAB, PDF-based deliverable to web content, but it was kind of fun. I liked the the results. I like the impact you had working with Confluence, being able to edit and fix things on the fly. But then another decision was made, and now we're converting again to Markdown. But again, this is something that I can only do my best to perform in it, and I can see positive points about it, but it's beyond my control. Okay, so the title of the presentation is cliché, and wearing many hats is probably as cliché term as out of the box and game changing, but I think my pictures, they accompany that clichéness well. So this is to finish with my work. I told you I'm a technical writer, I'm an information developer, but that's just one of the hats I'm wearing. I'm also editor. Confluence, collaboration tool, anyone can log in, any can change anything, anyone can add any topic they want. So it's important for me to edit, and I like it. Customer assistance. I'm a customer support assistant. I'm directly logged into the support portal, and if there's a ticket related to information, I get it assigned directly, and then I deal with the customer one-to-one without intermediate support specialist in between. I'm a UX writer. We work in Agile, so I'm also going to talk about it later. I write text in the UI. I create tools. When we moved to Data, creating tools was a little bit more difficult because I never had guts to learn Confluence API, to learn about macros and programming there, but once you store your files in XML, Markdown, any text format, you can very easily process them, you can integrate it with the product, with the UI, and these are the kind of tools I created to make our work easier. And I'm also patent coordinator in the lab. I help inventors to create their patent applications, and this is an extremely interesting experience because to write a patent applications you need to forget about everything you learned about your language you've learned in your entire life, because to be plain and understandable, this is not the key factor of the patent application. And I'm also doing some stuff outside of technical writing. From time to time, I do some copywriting, especially for the employee branding side, trying to attract new talents to our company. I'm thinking about how to structure this presentation. I already told you I want to talk about my life experience as a technical writer, but I tried to pick the 4 most prominent aspects of being a technical writer, or the most interesting things, the most interesting stories that tell you or that would allow me to share my findings and to tell you what's important in this job. And these are not tools. So, new kid on the block. This is a story about starting. This is a story about being a fresh technical writer, learning the craft, and not always paying attention to what's important. Curator. This is the story about working in working in Confluence with very many content providers, trying to make sure that everything's consistent and everything makes sense. Then this is Docs as Code. It is a story about technical writer being a part of an agile team, trying to integrate with developers as much as possible in terms of tools, approach, and ideology of work. And then this is a story of a technical writer being a customer support assistant. Okay, so story 1, the new kid on the block. I'm sure that you've heard it many, many times. To start usually when you start working as a technical writer, you're not particularly qualified or trained to do the actual job you're going to start. Because even if you have some experience or some education in technical writing, you're going to deal with the matter you probably have no idea about. Software, products, things you need to document are ecosystems, are worlds in itself, and you need to learn a lot to be able to start writing. So you probably heard it many times. This is a very steep learning curve you need to go up. When we talk about the steep learning curve, what's the most difficult to learn when you start your career as a technical writer? Is it the technology? Is it the product you're going to write about? Is it the tools? Is it the data? Is it the XSLFO? Or is it your customization? Or is it the decision which tags to use to mark which elements? Like, what's the most important? Or maybe it's the writing. Anyone can write, yes? Okay, I'm sure most of you would agree with me that no, not everyone can write. So why do we think that writing is easier? So we have tech writing. When we think about tech, these are tools, this is the subject matter we're going to write about. This is the knowledge contained within the product you need to know. These are the processes inside the company that you need to learn, you need to get acquainted with to be able to maneuver in the corridors of the office and find the answers, especially as technical writer, where research is the most crucial part of our work. It's difficult to learn. But then writing. Like, do you remember the first sentence you had ever to write as a technical writer? Like, what did you think? You were probably given a task. There's this feature, you need to describe it. But did you ask yourself a question, how should I describe it? Did you ask yourself a question, why does this piece of feature need a documentation? Being a fresh technical writer, it's very often about assertiveness. Do you still have QA teams in your companies? No, not really. Okay, I remember one of the first experiences I had with QA. I was documenting the installation of some component, which was basically a standard Windows installation program. And you know, there's an installation wizard. You go step by step, click next, installed. And then I send in my procedure to the QA guy to check, and he returns it with, you didn't describe the screen 2 license agreement. You didn't describe screen 4 custom installation directory. And being a fresh technical writer, you think that this guy is right. You should document it. And this is just an example. And as a result, if you don't know why you should document something, you don't know why you should provide information, you end up with loads of content that is difficult to manage, that it makes your search experience bad, which increases your documentation body too much with this useless information that nobody reads. And this is the kind of information that actually nobody reads in true. Working in a software company, you have the GA date, and it is assumed that the documentation for the release should be complete and ready at the GA date. Really? Is it really so? Quality or completeness? Being a fresh technical writer, you think you are obsessed, you panic if you know that the GA is tomorrow and there's still this little feature that it's not described. You panic because you're afraid that the moment your customer is going to install the software, he'll immediately see that this piece of information is missing. But for me, the quality is over completeness. And if you can sacrifice a few topics to be able to deliver quality information for something that really matters, that's better. And it also refers to the question, how much? So also coming back to the first one, how have you ever tried to explain to someone who's not involved in writing professionally what a tone and voice is? Would you be able to explain tone and voice in a single sentence? Probably not. So why do you think that it's easy when you start as a technical writer? And there are many, many aspects of writing as well. Also, writing is a creative process. We all know about writer's block. You cannot write always. You cannot write whenever you think to. Sometimes you just get a writer's block and you can't. It's bloody, bloody difficult. Okay, so that was my first story. The second story is the curator. Curator meaning the guy who's not only writing, but needs to deal with content provided by other people. And this is the sentence, this is the actual sentence that appeared in a content provided by someone outside technical communications. You are probably familiar with user journeys in UX, and so it's very important to ease the user's frustration when something really bad happens. And this piece of text was presented to the user who wanted to submit escalation ticket. So when you submit an escalation ticket, you're pretty frustrated, I guess. How would you feel if you saw something like this? Probably like this officer from Death Star. Yeah, that's why curating content, editing is important. So what happens if you just open up a collaboration tool like Confluence to everyone and let them edit the content? This is something like this. Everyone's a writer. By the way, I'm not I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but writer in graffiti is a person who actually does the graffiti. They call themselves writers, not graffiti makers, painters, whatever, they're writers. So everyone's a writer, everyone writes whatever they want, wherever they want. But how to fix it? Because for the user, the information is probably valuable, because if someone decides to make some input, there's usually some value behind it. But if a user is confronted with something like this, it doesn't really help much, as we had at the first presentation. You can have great content, but if you're not able to find it because of bad structure or because some topics that are written against the CEO principles, he'll never find it. So being a curator is to do with this, you can turn into this. So you can take this content, structure it, and present it in a gallery. Artists, they don't present their stuff themselves in a gallery. They need to go through the curation process. They need someone to help them put their art in context and put them and show them in a proper way. So being a curator, being an editor of content created by many stakeholders, many contributors from all sides of the company is like this. So the hardest part in being the curator is actually to realize that you're not the only writer anymore. You're not the wizard. You're not the guy who holds to the knowledge. You need to let go, and you need to give your child of information to someone else. This is the most difficult step to take, but once you make it, it gets easier. Whenever you get input, appreciate it. You shouldn't take it for granted. If someone decides to provide input for users, you should appreciate it. Be kind. You know, you can very often you'll get very crap content with mistakes, with very bad language against all your principles. But to a certain extent, you should be kind, and yeah, and it also involves appreciations. And when you get the input, when you edit, make sure that the original contributor actually can see the difference. When you edit content, don't do it just for the sake of editing. Make sure that there is a difference. And with right approach, with right ideas, it's doable. Okay, next story. Docs as code. How many of you work in agile development environment? Very good. So the stars of agile development are, of course, developers. for us, for technical writers, it's sometimes difficult to fit into agile development team because usually there are more Scrum teams than tech writers in a product. So you can't really commit completely to a Scrum, but you should, and for your users' advantage, you should do your best to commit as much as possible. There's a very common misconception about Agile Manifesto that everyone uses as an excuse on not to work on the documentation. This is this. No documentation. But there's one noun missing, project documentation. Information is part of a working product. So we're not writing documentation, we're delivering information to our customers so that they know how to use the product. And how to take the agile environment to the maximum advantage, because it's a friendly environment, and I think that for technical writers this is the perfect environment to work in. You should immerse yourself in the development and live the way they live. Don't be a chicken. Do you know the concept of chicken and pigs? Be a pig. Commit to the product, wherever, how much you can. Okay, maybe you cannot be a complete pig, maybe you can be a feathered pig, I don't know, but you should try your best to commit to the product, to work of the team as much as possible. Don't wait 2 sprints, 3 sprints, 4 sprints for the feature to be complete and to document it. Start writing from scratch. It's worth writing it 5 times editing because it guarantees that at the end it's going to be even better. Commit in 2 meanings. Commit to the team. If there's no documentation tasks available to you, offer other help, test, learn something so that team can go further. But commit, it also means use Git, use repositories together with the developers, because they'd rather, if you send a pull request and assign a developer as a reviewer, he'll more likely review it and give you feedback than if you write an email to him. You're in the same ecosystem with them. Yeah, so that's what I meant. Use the same tools. If they use some development tools, install them on your desktop as well. Even if you don't know how to program Java, have it. Be able to refer to it, because code is information. You don't really need to know how to code to find information in it. It's not rocket science. So it was Agile, Doc as Docs, and this is another story of mine being a customer support specialist. You are the support. You both, your audience is the same. You and the support specialist, they work with the same person. The only difference is that they are working directly with them on a day-to-day basis. But your advantage is that you can be a customer specialist before the customer actually sees the product. So when you see that it's crap, when you see that it might cause problems to the user, speak it up, speak it out loud. You're the support assistant before the user gets the product delivered. And we also had it in previous presentations, build relationships with the customers. Have you got a forum? Have you got a means to communicate with the user? Use it to the max. We have a community forum for the users of our product, and I follow all the questions. We haven't got a very large consumer base because, as I told you, our software is like $2 million each deal, so we have like 500-600 active customers, but forum is rather lively. Whenever I see that I know how to answer the question with a link to documentation, I do it. Whenever I see an opportunity to improve the documentation through listening to the customers, I do it, and then I let them know, thanking for their input. It really, really helps to build a relationship and trust for the documentation. Get feedback as much as possible. Like we also had it mentioned, have feedback forms under your topics. Don't be afraid. Even though most of them will be negative, don't be afraid of those. Feedback is very, very important. And continuously improve your documentation set and your information based on the feedback you get from the customers. Whenever you know that there's going to be a change in the product, important from the perspective of the customer, communicate it to them through the channels you established before. Okay, so these were my stories, and now listen carefully, very carefully, because I shall not say this twice. These are takeaways. Know what you write. Before you start writing, answer the questions: how, why, how much, when. Know what you write, be conscious. Do not just monkey document the new features by saying that by clicking the red button, you change color to red. Don't do it. Be a wordsmith. This is the most precious skill that we have. We know how to deal with the word, and we know how to make the sentences sound sexy, and we know how to make them be accessible. When curating content of other contributors, use it and show them that it's important. Yeah, your skills are precious. Not everyone can write, and you should communicate it if you want to be appreciated. And users don't buy it. Get in touch with them, talk to them, try to reach out to them as only possible, because I realize, as I said, there are many factors beyond your control. You can't do anything about it, but if you can, try and reach out to your users. You're for them, you are their advocate. Okay, so that was it. I found this, like looking for all these 80s graphics for my presentation, I found this picture of Kurt Vonnegut soap, and I actually picked a subject I cared the most about, which I presented to you. If you are a Polish speaker, make sure that you check out Ukontentowani. This is very well curated content, trying to find the most interesting topics and ideas in content creation in general, not only technical writing. I really recommend it to you. Thank you very much. And I've got a gift for someone who disagrees with me the most. If you think that I'm out of my mind, just say it to me. And this is the book I wrote, and this is not a technical book. This is a book, I mean, there's not much text in it, it's more of an album. This is a catalog of the collection of street art in a little neighborhood of Zaspa. We have 59 murals painted on 36 meters walls of Zaspa. This is the text here I wrote. So if you disagree with me to the max, the book is yours.
So is it questions and in a turn for disagreeing with you?
Questions, disagreements,
comments?
Whatever.
Okay. Who's disagreeing? Okay, one person. We can, okay. We don't have much time for questions. We can afford like the maximum of 3 people speaking now. So hands up. Okay.
Well, it's not much of a disagreement, actually. I'm hoping to get the book anyway, since I've lived in Zaspa anyway.
Oh, good.
It's more of an additional information, since I'm working at an online monitoring company. You've told us that we could search contact or search information about our product on our own forums. Well, we can choose, like wider spread.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So reach to your audience anywhere else, through online monitoring tools.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's just, it's just my my perspective. My consumer base is not very large, so I usually find the easiest way to reach out them is through the forum. But of course, if your user base is like thousands, there's lots of places you can find feedback and reach out to them. That's right.
So you agree with me? No book for me. Also.
Anyone else?
Hello, I have a sort of professional question.
Mm-hmm.
So you used to be an English teacher and then you changed to a technical writer. How do you find yourself in this new role, and would you go back to being a teacher again?
It's not that new. I'm doing it for more than 10 years, but I mean, this is like teaching. You know, I sometimes miss the direct communication and the energy of a lesson, but yeah, as a hobby, why not? But
Okay, but it's
it's a difficult work.
okay, it's also a different environment, yeah.
Yeah.
And which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I prefer working in IT, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we had one more person here in the front with a question, or maybe, okay. So Jarek, you have to kind of think about who to give the book to.
Okay, I would like to ask about Agile. So, can you give some details? How are you able to which scope work in clear Agile? So, if you have one Scrum, is it? If you have two Scrums, is it possible to work to attend all stand-ups, retrospectives, demos?
No, this is. I once attended a mini conference in London about agile and tech writing, and this is a common experience for almost everyone. You cannot commit completely in agile to every Scrum team. It's virtually impossible. That's why I created this term of a feathered pig, that this is the compromise, but you need to commit as much as possible. Like our approach is we have our own technical communication Scrum, which is kind of a cap for all the other development Scrums, but we try to attend every single meeting and commit to, and get stories assigned and commit to the project as much as possible.
Are you part of definition of done? It is like, were you able to?
Yeah, that's a loophole. No, we're not part of definition of done, but we do our best. Like when it comes to UX writing, then yes, we are, because the UI needs to be shipped with the ready text. So yes, but when it comes to external information, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is all of the questions. Jarek, do you want to give the book away to someone? If not, you can still decide in our soapy corner.
You can come and disagree with me in private in a soapy booth, and if you're hard on me, then I might reconsider. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jarek.